everybody doing? This is Matt Wallace. It is another Music Quest interview, May 4th, and today we are going to be talking with Rosanna Eckert. Hi, Rosanna.
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing well. I am so happy to have you on this podcast, live stream, whatever it is. How well do you know Twitch? How much do you know about Twitch?
Not that much actually.
It's fine. So Twitch is this platform that emerged years ago where all these gamers, if you wanted to watch, you can find 10,000 people watching somebody play World of Warcraft. And it's weird. It's live, but there's this like subgroup where people are like cooking and they're doing art, and there's just talk channels. I think that's what I've classified myself as. But then there's this whole group of musicians. And it really kind of exploded during COVID because now all these people are like, hey, I don't have anywhere to gig. And it went nuts. So that's what we're on right now. We're on Twitch. And and I can guarantee you that our real-time audience is probably one of the smallest audiences. My channel, I have very few people that frequent it yet. But I am very, very happy to be talking with you. And we're recording all this, so hopefully in the end, some of the people that know and care about you can watch it at their convenience if they don't know anything about Twitch.
Sounds good.
So I usually start by telling people how my guests get here. And I have a couple of connections with you. One, that you are a renowned vocalist. I know you do much more than that, but I knew you as a singer in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And so, if you were in the Dallas area doing music, you at least knew your name. So that's from way back in the day. And then later, you taught our daughter at the university. So I've known you for two different reasons, and both of those give me every impression that when it comes to music, you're somebody I could definitely want to talk to. So, welcome.
Thanks. Yeah.
How are you? What's up? What's going on?
I'm good. My life is full. I'll put it that way. Mm-hmm. Life is really, really full. I do have a lot of different irons in the fire. My career is sort of multifaceted. So for that reason, I would say the days are full and no 2 weeks are the same.
And that is one additional reason why I'm very honored that you would take some of your time from a very busy schedule to visit with me. So I really hope that whatever happens here, that at the end of it, if sometime way off in the future, I'm like, hey, let's check in with Rosanna, that you would have enjoyed this enough that you would go, I can do that again. So that's my goal. Now, we'll see whether or not we hit that or not. But I usually start off with some just very basic bio. I mean, it doesn't have anything to do with music. And actually, let's back up before that a little bit. Just to clarify, Music Quest, in my way of thinking, what I'm calling Music Quest is that music is amazing, wonderful stuff, like on so many levels. And very, very few people don't have some sort of relationship or opinion about music, all the way from people who obviously it's their entire life to people who just enjoy it. And so Music Quest is not about just talking with musicians or just people who, make a living from it. So I talk to people who are, I haven't done it yet, but I intend to interview some people that have big record collections who can't carry a tune in a bucket, but, obviously are into it. So there's this spectrum. And in my mind, there's people who just barely have a relationship. And then there are people on this other end of the spectrum who are like, music. And I think you're helping me push that out there on the music side. So thank you very much. So that's what Music Quest is. Now, do me a favor and introduce yourself. Let people who are watching this know a little about where you came from, not necessarily music, but just Rosanna, the person. And I will shut up. I apologize, but I can't help but get things started, and that's how I do it. So there you go.
Sure, yeah. Well, let's see. I'm a Texan, a native Texan.
Excellent.
I grew up in El Paso, Texas.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I was a band kid. That was my thing. I played French horn. I sang in, I didn't really sing as much then, but I did sing in some like little hobby barbershop groups with my parents, my mom mostly. And so that was kind of my thing with singing. And they listened to a lot of different music at home. Glenn Miller and Brazil 66 and Mexican trio music and you name it. They kind of listened to it. So I came to UNT here in the Dallas area for school to major in composition, I guess. I didn't really know what I was going to do, but I knew I wanted to write music.
Hold it. Okay, so you're like, I guess that's why I showed up. That's awesome.
Well, first I showed up to major in theater because I had done musical theater in El Paso. They had like a community theater, and I had done some of that. And that was my first thought was those are some of the best experiences of my life, you know? So, but then you go and you dig into the theater thing. And they're like, okay, your audition's going to be like this Shakespeare thing and this very serious thing. And it's all dramatic. And it was spanning a lot of decades and decades of art. And I thought, okay, yeah, no, this isn't Fiddler on the Roof, you know?
Right.
I was in like Annie, you know, and I really liked that. So my mom said, well, maybe you want to major in music. And I thought, oh my gosh, major in music. I knew that I did not have the passion. I was a very good French horn player. Really serious and really good. But I knew myself well enough to know that I was driven by competition, like by all region and all state and things like that, you know, and here's a set goal, you know, learn this etude really, really well, compete, put on a show. It's a real clean goal. But when you get out into the world, there's no clean goal. It's just like, no, just be great all the time.
Yeah.
You know, that's the goal is be great all the time and practice enough that you are great all the time. And I knew with brass instruments, you have to practice every day or you lose your chops, you know? And I just thought, no, that's not my personality. I can't be competitive in that way. So I thought, okay, I like composing. So I thought, well, someone told me to major in music theory because that's what composers do. So I majored in theory comp, as they say, and have a minor in French horn performance. That was my first degree.
Fantastic. My mom played French horn. I don't think she was as serious about it as you, but that's the first time I remember even knowing about it. I wasn't in band. I was in choir in high school, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. Over the years, I've been blessed to hang out with a lot of excellent musicians, and people say, hey, D, are you a musician? I'm like, nah. I mean, I have one of those voices that blend well, which is another way of saying there's no personality whatsoever. I mean, like it's just not interesting. So you found that, and your mom actually put that thought in your head.
Well, she put the idea of maybe the thing you like about musical theater is the music side of it. So maybe you should major in music. But I wasn't, you know, again, I had that horn thing. I wasn't thinking as a singer. I mean, that was definitely not a thought because I wasn't a choir kid. I'd never sung solo, not really. I mean, in theater, I had an 8-bar solo in this one show, but it was pretty plain. You know, like you said, if you're a choir kid, if you're a choral kid, you're not used to putting bells and whistles on things and using your solo voice. So that was a journey for sure. But I think being at UNT, you know, I was in marching band. I was real interested in drum corps. I was drum major. I loved DCI. I marched drum and bugle corps with the Blue Knights. And I mean, I was really into it.
That's serious. People who don't know what that is, she just threw down. Like, that means she really was into it.
I was so into it.
Yeah.
So I was like one of the few people I knew that took marching band just for fun. Because everybody else was like a music ed major and they had to take it. And they were like, oh, this is so much work.
Right.
But I loved it. I wanted to do it. So I did marching band, and that's where I met a bunch of my jazz friends. I met all these guys who were saxophone players, and they played the lab bands, and they were all jazzy guys. Everybody I my closest friends were all jazz guys. And so I would go to the concerts and I would
Right.
go see the jazz choir. And
Yeah.
I just went and saw like a ton of different people playing in jazz. And then there was a jazz band that was doing like this really old music that needed French horns. And I played in the
Ah,
jazz big band, you know? So it was like
that,
a really interesting, yeah, transitional time. And by the end of my first degree, I was singing in the jazz choir and I was very confused about my future.
well, you just spoke volumes to me when you said you were into that particular drum corps stuff and the energy you were putting into it and being in the band because you wanted to be, and it wasn't, yeah, you just spoke volumes about your focus and commitment and energy. All of those things are required. If I remember, I never did any of that. I've only watched it through, kids and my kids and stuff. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. I mean,
cool.
the drum corps lifestyle it's an intense lifestyle.
We actually, okay, so a lot of the people who might watch this in the Twitch community would know about me and this because of my wife, Miriam. You know Miriam, and she has her own channel, Mother Merm, and so that's where a lot of this happens. So I have a hard time not like rolling in a little bit of side things related to that. There's one of Miriam's most consistent financial backers is a couple out of are a couple out of California, and they came through Texas this last year and stayed with us 2 different times. We met them totally online, and they're both hardcore trumpet players and into the DC, all of that stuff. And it was anybody who's on Twitch, it's Mary, and so. Yeah, that's a whole culture, and so let me set that aside. So I see the trajectory, friends, they're players, you're doing something you love, you're in the music program. When did you have the epiphany that, dang, I can sing? Because you can. So when did that really kind of occur to you that, it wasn't just, oh, I can sing, but I can really sing?
It's weird. I mean, sometimes choices that we make that seem very like no big deal choices, a small decision that we made kind of off the cuff ends up shaping our entire lives. I think that happens for everybody.
Yeah.
And it was
Yes,
like
it
me.
does.
I was in my college dorm. I was heading to the cafeteria and I saw a flyer on a wall that said pop and jazz voice lessons. And I thought, I've always wanted to take voice lessons. I think that'd be fun. And so I called the lady, and it turned out to be the teaching fellow, the grad assistant for the jazz voice program.
Mm-hmm.
And she taught me, I thought she was going to teach me some pop tunes, that's what I wanted to learn. And she taught me some jazz standards, some jazz tunes. And I mean, I was okay. I wasn't great. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, I can sing. It was just like, oh, this is fun. And then she said, I think you should audition for the jazz choir. I think you'd be great. And some of my friends, my mom's friends and people that I'd known who'd gone to UNT, they were like, oh, do it. It's really fun. And you like singing harmony because of your barbershop background. Okay. So I did. I auditioned. And because I could sight read very well because of my horn background, I got in. And then just being around all of those people, that group, I mean, everything exploded when I got in that group. I was hired as a hired section leader at a church, and now I had a church job and I was singing all the time there. And then I met my husband in that group. He wasn't my husband right away, obviously, but that's where I met Gary.
Yeah.
And so he and I ended up in different performing groups together. And I ended up because you're in that group, they see you and then they just ask you to do things. I end up, singing in a cover band, and then I sang in this Brazilian ensemble, and then I sang over here in a Caribbean band, and I sang over here in this other little jazz band. The opportunities just came at me, I think partly because I was reliable.
Mm-hmm.
I was really you could count on me. I could sing in tune. I could read really well. And I prepared quickly, but I wasn't, much of a soloist at first. And so I just sort of tried to hurry. I tried to develop that side of me quickly, and I tried to really hurry and get more of it. But for a while then, after I graduated, I was kind of living a double life. I was teaching 45 French horn students a week at like middle school and high schools. And I was subbing in the Irving Symphony sometimes, and I was playing in a brass quintet, and I was singing, subbing in a cover band, and I was like singing in this Brazilian
This
band. I mean, it was like super overlap, and I was very confused, and I didn't know what to do with myself, and you know.
So this is starting to make a lot of sense to me because, like I said, we're not tight. We're not, quote, friends. We don't hang out. Well, you know some of the same people, but, you know, it's like, hey, Rosanna, you know who we are. And that's about it. But I have in my head kind of who you are. And it's this accomplished person who does great things, right? And I think this trend, like you just described, a whole lot more that requires a whole lot of commitment and a whole lot of energy and a whole lot of everything. And yeah, that's starting to make a lot of sense. So you said something
weird,
about
right?
you said something about barber shop, and then I want to go back to parents' music. I mean, influence. How did that go? I mean, what influence was there?
Well, I'm Hispanic and our culture has a lot of music in it. A lot of my family, all the extended family, there's deep extended family. My mom has like 30 first cousins, you know.
Okay.
And I think my grandma was like one of 10 who lived to adulthood, you know. And so it's a lot of cousins. Everybody sings. My whole life, everybody sang. There's a family song. They're singing at every wedding. Huge group sings, you know. So music has always just been a big part. Mariachi is at every big event, you know. It's always been a part of the culture. Like everybody sings, of course. My dad taught himself to play guitar. My mom took piano lessons as a kid. And when they got to be I don't know, right when I was maybe born or no, a little before I was born, someone at my dad's work invited him to visit a barbershop chorus
Okay.
rehearsal. So, you know, a cappella, four part, a
Yeah.
particular style of a cappella music.
Right.
And they're like, you like to sing, right? And he was like, yeah, you know, and so that changed their lives. Him saying,
Right.
sure, because that ended up, he did join that chorus. And my mom, who was a PE teacher and modern dance teacher at a high school, she was really good at like rhythm and dance and physical movement and stuff. And she saw that they weren't doing very much choreography. So she thought, you know, I think I could enhance this group a lot. And so she ended up, you know, they suggested to the director, they invited him over and they showed him, you know, we could do these moves in the chorus. And they showed him. And this is with the Dallas chapter called The Vocal Majority, which is like this world-renowned barbershop chorus, right?
Hmm.
But it was my parents, it was my mom who sort of introduced this idea of like really elaborate choreography. And that affected choruses all over the world. From that point on, the Vocal Majority went on to win the international competition. And
Yeah.
as long as my parents were their choreographers, they never lost. And all of a sudden my parents in the barbershop world, which is this like little niche
Wow.
world, they were like super famous and they traveled the world. They would go everywhere and choreograph for choruses all over the world. So my whole childhood, they were gone all the time, choreographing. And they would bring me along. We're going to London because we're working with a chorus in London. You should come with us. We're going to Hawaii. Come with us. We're going to work with a chorus in Hawaii. I mean, it was this crazy thing. So I was surrounded by a cappella barbershop singing all the time growing up. And that was a pretty deep influence.
That is significant. I mean, like I said, I don't know how often people find that out about you. Like I said,
Yeah.
that's crazy cool. And
Yeah. It's super random and like, you know, this sort of
that's influential
side
to
story.
say the
But yeah.
least. I mean, the barbershop, that's you gotta hit the note or it's not going to sound right. That's all there is to it.
No. Any
Yeah.
a cappella, you know,
Well,
there's a
yes.
higher level, higher stakes.
Yeah, yes, there are. So thank you for sharing that with me. That was unexpected and I thoroughly enjoyed that. So that's the environment you came out of. And that sounds like the level of commitment and energy and involvement in all of this, you know, fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. That sounds like that's what's going on a little bit. So at what point I'm going to jump back into college. You're around all these people. You're doing all these things. At what point did it start making sense that you would end up the person you are today? I mean, like it's never a straight line, but with the way you described what your experience was, and you just had the opportunities. Oh, and the other thing you said, you were talking about earlier that I thought of is like, this is where you tell young people, be careful who you hang out with, because who you hang out with really matters. And all of those opportunities you just described in college, it's because of who you're hanging out with.
I mean, I do think this is true for a lot of people. And having taught at UNT now for 23 years or something,
Wow.
I see it all the time where chance meetings, chance decisions, just small little choices can have huge effect. And it's like, on the one hand, it's a little bit, like, yeah, like make smart choices, really think about your choices before you do stuff, because it might matter a lot. But on the other hand, it's also like, try not to be so worried about the future. Because like, I could never have predicted this future for me. And little paths along the way sort of led to where I am. So I think it was a gradual process. It was like, for a while, I was a horn player and a singer. And I followed every time a door would open, somebody would ask me to do a gig, somebody asked me to play something or sing something, I would say yes. And if it was a little out of my wheelhouse, I would figure it out. I would just figure out how to do it. And I ended up getting just more opportunities as a singer. And then, I went ahead and enrolled as a graduate student at UNT in jazz studies, just to try it out. I didn't think I'd finish. I just wanted to take a few extra classes to learn more about jazz. But then I ended up getting a teaching fellowship and finishing. I did. I got a master's in jazz voice on a French horn scholarship.
Fantastic. So
Yeah.
One of the things, we do have some people, and here's something that somebody just posted, a friend of ours, can you read that? Is that showing up?
Yeah. You've had Vocal Majority CDs for decades. I know.
Yeah.
They're amazing. I mean, they're world class. Their CDs are awesome.
Yeah. Well, like I said, you are the epitome of the kind of person I'm excited to talk to, because the things we could talk about are virtually endless. Not that you want to talk about all of them with me, but I could ask questions for a week. But let me kind of dial in a little bit. What qualifies just straight up the most fun? Now, over all these years, all the things that have happened, there's things that might have been fun 20 years ago, and now you're like, yeah, I've done that, and it's not as. But today, like for you today, what kinds of things qualify as like, you're like, oh, that'll be fun when it comes to music?
Yeah, when it comes to music. Well, for me, I think one of the big appeals about music is the community aspect of it, the social aspect. I love singing with people, hanging out with people, playing with people, songwriting with people, arranging with people. That's the thing. So if I can continue to collaborate and surround myself with really cool people who, we can make great art with, that's just the most fun thing. It's so much fun. It's the relationships for me completely, 100%.
Well, I agree. Music doesn't need our help. Music is awesome out there, but when we start engaging it, it's the interaction with other people. I mean, I can sit down and listen to an album and appreciate it and go, oh, it's awesome. It's feels kind of, I don't say selfish, but it's kind of what I want. But that interaction with people, the creativity, the challenges, all of those kinds of things that go with it are kind of that's part of the reason why I like it so much. So one of our people, same guy earlier, let me see if I can get this to come up. Oh, crud. I got to make the screen ever so slightly larger. There we go. So Sweet Adelines, is that a female barbershop choruses?
It's an organization. Yeah. It's like the women's, organization. Yeah. My mom directed the El Paso Sun Gold Sweet Adeline Chorus in El Paso for years and years. And that was a big part of, so yeah, that's cool that in Abilene. That's neat. Wow.
So this isn't critical on anything, but I'm from West Texas. Now, technically, you're from the West
Yeah, we're
Texas.
from like the real West Texas, okay?
Okay, so it's funny because Abilene, I went to school in Abilene, it's where I met Miriam, and they would say, we're the West Texas, and I'm from Andrews, and I'm like, no, but see,
I never get that. I never get that.
I'm not from West Texas because you're from West Texas.
Yeah, I never got that, like ever. You know, even now here living in Dallas and we call ourselves North Texas, and I look at Amarillo and people in Amarillo are the most north are like, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what's funny though, okay, now I grew up in the oil patch halfway between Lubbock and Odessa, Midland. Okay, that's where I'm from. I'm in middle of nowhere, Andrews. But in my estimation, it really did feel, this has nothing to do with music, okay? But it felt like El Paso really was its own thing. And like it was fundamentally different than that swath of the Panhandle all the way down to the south end where I was, even towards like Fort Davis and stuff like that. El Paso really felt like its own thing. So yes,
El Paso is its own thing. I totally agree. Totally agree.
So this has nothing to do with music either, but what is something you would say to someone who thinks about going to El Paso, like, this is what I love about El Paso? Is
oh my gosh.
anything like that?
Yes. I mean, the thing about El Paso is that, first of all, it's the pass through the mountain. So the mountain is the star of the show. And the whole city just wraps around this mountain. So the mountain is gorgeous and it's a huge, huge part of the landscape. And the mountain is like right there. I mean, it's right there. And there's a beautiful star that's lit up on the mountain all the time. So they have a scenic drive through the mountain, which is really, really beautiful. So, to drive that is spectacular. But it's probably got 850,000 people. So it's a pretty big place, almost 1 million people. But it feels like a small town. I don't know how they achieve that, but they really do. I think it's because family, generation after generation, a lot of people stay there. And even people who leave, they tend to like coming back. It's a really family, they love music, they love the arts. There's so much culture. The people who run the city have really prioritized maintaining the look, that desert Mexican art kind of look to the city. So it doesn't look like every other city. So much of the time you go to any city and it's like, okay, there's Target, there's, you see all the same things and it doesn't really look like any different. But El Paso just looks so different and it sounds so different. And downtown is thriving and amazing and historic, old historic hotels, historic restaurants, it's really a striking place to go and see and hang out.
So I don't want to talk about this now, but if we were going to talk about it, do you have any good Juarez stories?
Oh, I mean, it's funny. Well, when back in my day, right, I went to high school in the 90s, and back in my day, right, the drinking age in Juarez, which probably is still the case, is 18, right? So you had all these kind of crazy high school kids. It was just a car ride. It was 15 minutes away. And so people would get whatever they would do, their fake IDs. I never did this, but they did this. And they would go and party over there all the time. My family, my mom had cousins over there. She still does. In fact, she's on her way there right now. They're going to a wedding in Juarez like today. Yeah. So they should be arriving in like an hour. But yeah, we used to go and go to get a haircut. I would go get my hair permed in Juarez. My mom, when she was 8, would take the trolley by herself. Maybe she was 12, but still, it's pretty young. Right. By herself across the border to go take a piano lesson and come back. It used to be just such a part of the culture to go back and forth. And not so much anymore.
Not so much anymore.
Not so much anymore. It's it's pretty intense, and for a while, the crime on the other side, was, it's still, I think, a little out of control, but it's why El Paso's been ranked the safest city in America for so long, because there's just so much protection of the border that people think, oh, El Paso must be so dangerous. And it's actually the total opposite. It's been listed as number one safest city in America because there's so much.
Yeah, they take it seriously because they have reason to. So I didn't think of this until you were just describing what you did. And this is not important, but I'm going to tell you about something you may or may not know about. I've done a couple of car commercials down in the Big Bend area. I grew up going out there. My dad's in geology, so we spent all kinds of time down in Big Bend and Fort Davis. We have a property down there. But nice. In my more recent years, a couple of different times we did car commercials down there. Big car commercials, because it's a really scenic place to do car commercials. But we were down there at the end of one of those. Miriam and I decided to stay over. And at Terlingua, they have this thing called Voices from Both Sides. And they set up huge bands just right on the edge of the river. And the Mexican side gigs for a couple hours, and then the American sides, and they just trade off. And it's all the food is free. And people are just walking back and forth across the river. And it's just a big party. And it's called Voices from Both Sides. And those are the kinds of things I'm like, I get immigration. I don't want to talk about that. I understand it's an important topic, but that culture, if that culture is a fatality in all of how things unfold, that just kills me, because that was just fabulous. I mean, some fantastic. It was just fun, and I didn't walk over. I bet there was plenty of law enforcement just standing there watching everybody having a good time. But there were some crews there doing a documentary. But people just walking back and forth. They'd go over there and get some food. They'd come back over here get some food. It was all free. I mean, you could do donations, but it was a musical event right on the border, and that culture just fluid back and forth was special. And I don't know how many people have heard of that, so I thought I'd mention it.
It's that sounds so amazing, and it doesn't surprise me at all. It's like, yep, that is exactly something that would happen. That the Mexican culture is so loving and so creative and so wonderful, and the food and the music and the family oriented and the art. I mean, it's a beautiful culture, the dance. So yeah, what's happening to that country is really, really, really sad. And but the Mexican people are just so amazing. And so El Paso is obviously a direct reflection of all of that. And yeah, we'll hopefully over time they will find their footing over there. And but yeah, it's a beautiful place and a beautiful culture. And I'm really proud to be part of that. So yeah, there's plenty of that here in Dallas. I'm able to find that kind of culture here, and I have a lot of family who have relocated here. So,
well, fantastic. Yeah. So thank you for letting me go on that little excursion out west.
Yeah, that's fun.
I didn't anticipate that part. I maybe I read it on your bio or something, or I don't know, but I thanks. That was fun. So the fun part is interacting with your people. And let's see. I was thinking through some of the things that I would be interested in asking you about. And one thing led to another. And I had an aha moment. I don't know why it hadn't occurred to me before, but there are 3 direct, very personal overlaps between you and my wife, who's best known on Twitch as Mother Merm. Okay? And I bet you may or may not have thought of them, but one, my wife always referred, still does to some degree, not as much as she used to, but she always referred to Brian Worthen as her bass player. Uh-huh. They're like best friends. I mean, yeah. But technically, he's your bass player. I know. Well, you don't own Brian. I get it, but I mean,
we play together.
Yeah. No, I understand, but I mean, I think you understand what I'm saying. She loves Brian, so there's a history there with a very talented, wonderful human. And then there's this other thing that's not as critical, but it is a real thing. If I remember correctly, you were part of the Steely Dan cover band.
Yeah, for 15 years.
Yeah, Miriam sang with them for quite a while. She and Nancy, and so that was a very specific group of people that you guys shared or it overlapped. And then there's also the final one that's probably the most obvious one, is that at some point or another, you were trying to probably help Morgan make good decisions and learn things, as obviously her mother has. Me too. But so those, I didn't really think about it, but those are three pretty legit crossovers over the years. What kinds of covered bands had you worked with in the past? I want to talk about the original stuff in a little bit, but you mentioned that earlier in your story that you started getting asked to do cover bands and stuff like that. That's a really important part of most professional musicians' trajectory at some point, because it pays. You can make money doing what you're good at, and because it requires there are bands that make money that aren't good, but generally you're going to encounter a lot of real players because you're getting paid. So tell me a little bit about that process. This isn't about a how-to for musicians, but if somebody was thinking they wanted to do music for a living and they had the opportunity to listen to you, what are some of your comments about cover bands? I'd love to hear kind of some of the trajectory and some comments about that.
Yeah, I do think it's like, it's sort of one of those gigs that is a possibility for young musicians who are coming out of school, or, they're wanting to kind of figure out how to make some money and how to have some fun. And they, everybody likes playing. People don't start music playing all their own music, right? You start by listening to other people's music and by maybe playing it and trying to imitate it and stuff like that. So it's really fun to play in a band like that.
It's good to practice your craft with actually good music. And the reason why the songs they play in cover bands is because people generally consider that good music, and it's hard to write that yourself.
For sure. So that's fun. It's really fun. So yeah, my earliest things, I think there's a band, I don't know if they're still around. They were called the Bulletproof Brass Band, and they played like clubs and restaurants and things and whatever. And so they needed a sub, and they asked me if I could sub. And I thought, oh my gosh. So I had to learn a bunch of music, mostly backgrounds, because I wasn't singing lead on very much yet. I sang lead on a couple things, but oh my gosh, that's where I learned, wow, I need to figure out how to sing loud a lot and how to sustain that and not hurt my voice, because it's a lot of loud, hard singing, Mm-hmm. So that showed me that I needed better technique, and I started on a technique journey. I think that is like the reason that I started on a really serious vocal technique journey, was because I was losing my voice doing cover bands. And then, I think it was when Miriam left the Steely Dan cover band, Naked Lunch. Nancy called me, and it was a day's notice. Something happened, and she called me and said, "Hey, can you come down to Club Dada? We need a sub tonight." Or maybe she'd been trying to get somebody and just couldn't, or she had a sub and they bailed. I don't know what happened. I just remember that it was Miriam's spot, and I didn't know either of them really. I was still a grad student, I think. Like it was like 1997, and I was in school, but I could read. And she said, there are charts. And I said, well, I read well, so I'll try it. I didn't listen to very much Steely Dan. I probably knew Hey 19.
Right.
And that's all. So, it was a very stressful, really hard reading gig, but thank goodness there were charts. I think I did very well. And after that, I think it's because you guys moved, and she couldn't do the band anymore. She was living kind of too far, and it was like, I've already done this.
I don't remember.
Yeah, but anyway,
I don't even know what year it was.
Yeah, she wanted to kind of depart that gig, and so Nancy was like, hey, you want to do it? And so then I did it. Even after Nancy left, I sang in that band probably, gosh, it had to have been 15 years. And so now I'm still associated with the band. I made learning tracks for all the songs, for every singer. And now I rotate my students. So it's a great opportunity for my students. So I have a steady rotation of students who do that that gig, which is great. And if they need a sub, then I'm there. I can sub if they need it to.
Yeah,
But that's a really awesome opportunity
it's a
for
good
them.
gig.
So
I
yeah, it's
remember,
great music. It's great.
I remember Piper, actually, if I remember correctly, when she was doing it, Piper actually lost money on those gigs because he would pay a guy to set up a skier. He would pay that guy more than he was actually making on the gig. Because there's like 13, how many people are in the lineup? It's 11 or something like that?
I think it might be a 10 or 11.
Yeah. So anytime you take, no matter what it is, you have to divide it 11 times. The dollars, it's not a money-making gig. This is cool music gig is what that is.
I know. Yeah, for sure. Somehow though, it got to be where that gig like paid pretty well. For gigs like that, I would think, oh, what am I going to make, $20? But no, I mean, it would like pay real money. So I think we had after that many years, there was a pretty good following.
You get a following. Yeah. It takes a while for everybody to know what it is. And so, it was fun. I love Steely Dan. I grew up listening to it and, definitely listen to more. So, now cover bands, got it. That's a thing. Cool, good music, good opportunities. Yeah. But you have successfully worked in the area of being able to gig with your original music. Yeah. Tell me about that. Tell me about some of those transitions when you got to do that, how often you were doing your music, how often did you co-write with people, just about the original music gigging thing, because we're going to talk about the band I know about, and there's a couple others that you're associated with that I'd like to hear about it as well, if you don't mind.
Sure, yeah. Well, I knew when I graduated with my master's, I knew that I wanted to make an album, and I knew that I wanted to write my own songs. I just always thought that was so cool. So I took a couple years to really work on that, and then I started the recording process. So I did about half standards that were arrangements and half original songs. So then, I would gig in different clubs, where other people were gigging, just leading my own jazz quartet, and I would do I'd sprinkle in some originals amongst all the other things that I would do, and that just sort of started the journey going. So I've done 3 full band albums. This last one was all originals, but writing songs has become a big part of my identity. I've written original music for choirs, and I'm a choral arranger, for different types of choirs and different levels of choirs. And I work with 4 different publishers. So original music is a big part of that. I've written original music for like little kids to use in their classrooms and general music, and jazz musical for elementary and, high school and college and pro. And I get commissioned all the time to write arrangements for choirs. And so I have to flex my songwriting muscles there. I teach a songwriting class at UNT. I've done songwriting workshops. Now songwriting is just like a huge, huge part of my life at this point. And I co-founded a band about 10 years ago or so called Brazuca, which is a Brazilian jazz fusion ensemble. And we started out playing all Sergio Mendes pretty much, but we were inspired to start, that's another cover band. That was like, we loved Sergio Mendes, and let's just get together and play Sergio Mendes. And we loved it. But then we were so inspired, we started writing our own tunes in that same style. And now we're an exclusively original band, and I have a really heavy hand in the writing. I write a lot for that band. So yeah, songwriting is a big, big part of my journey for sure.
Okay. So I'm going to interrupt. Everybody who's not paying attention right now, you should have a clear picture by now that there's no way we're going to even touch on even a tiniest fraction of all the things this lady does. So I'm going to point something out here. Let me see if I can pull this up without screwing this up. You got a website, rosannaeckert.com, and it's got calendars, your charts. So I found something on here that made me smile. And I hit the wrong button. I found something on here that we go down here, and that picture right there, I just made it smaller. I did that wrong. It's right there in the middle.
Yes.
I think did my daughter do a selfie? Is that what that is? With
yes, that is your daughter in the bottom left-hand corner.
Yeah. And so I didn't expect to see her on your website, but that's a photo with Bobby McFerrin, right? No?
Yes. 10-time Grammy-winning artist Bobby McFerrin.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, there's a ton of pictures on your websites. But the thing I really wanted to point out was that you guys really need to go check out her website and just read her bio. There's just so much in there. I mean, yeah, you do a lot of stuff. And so,
that's the definition of a musician today. It seems like, and at UNT, that's kind of what we're doing. We're trying to prepare people for a life in music, as opposed to I'm a fill in the blank. It's more like I have a life in music. So yeah, it feels like 5 different tracks, that I kind of keep up all the time.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Well, like I said, I don't know how clear I made this. It might have been some of the documentation I sent to you, but my goal is this interview. If I hit a bunch of wrong buttons, I screw something up, I'll edit that stuff out. This interview will be edited and put on a website, and on that website, I'm going to include links to all this stuff so people can find it in one place. And the other thing is that if you see that in the future, or you think, hey, I want to add something or something kind of cool. Yes, I just want to let you know that that's how that works. So I don't necessarily try to go over and convince everybody where everything they need to look at it during the interview, but I'm just letting you know it's available. So here's another one that you already mentioned, and it is the band Brazuca. And there you are with the guys, and those are some talented musicians in that picture right there.
It's Brian Worthen.
Yeah, well, he's the guy in the middle in the blue. That's, yeah. But I mean, just quick rundown on who everybody is and what they play, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so from left to right, that's Ricardo Bosas. He's a percussionist from Uruguay and a singer also. And then in the leather jacket is Denny Robinson. He's a singer and pianist from Cuba. And there's me. Then Brian Worthen is a bassist, and he also plays percussion and melodica in our band, and he is from Dallas. And he's one of the, first call bassists in town. He plays electric bass. And then there with the glasses there, the black jacket is Tom Burchell. He's a guitarist and also plays classical guitar too, but electric guitar and classical guitar. And he sings too, Tom Burchell. And he's from South Dakota. And then there's Jose Aponte, and he plays drum set and he sings, and he is from Puerto Rico.
Those 3 guys on the right, I know, I love those guys. Your whole band is cool, but the guys on the left, I only know because of you and this band. The other guys, some good dudes.
Yeah, they have a long history in this town for sure. I mean, I think Ricardo too, maybe not in your circles, but Denny is newer to the United States, right. But everybody has a long history. These are people who are working so much, and honestly, none of us have the time to do a band like this. Like, we just don't.
It's got to be because you guys love it. I mean, because it's work. I mean, even just going out and doing a photo shoot requires getting those people together. And if you're all busy trying to, do your thing, not trivial.
I know it's such a rare band because we've just we knew that there was something special about this band. And so we decided to make a commitment to each other. We rehearse regularly.
Oh,
and
really?
Before every rehearsal, we sit down and around a table and we eat. We go to Ricardo's house. He and his wife do a full spread of food for us. And we talk and get to, know what's going on in each other's lives. And then we go in the garage and we rehearse for like 3 hours. We write music together. Mm-hmm. We are all invested together. There's no leader of this group. We are all completely 100% invested financially, and everybody brings gigs in. Everybody is, a contractor of some kind. Like, everybody's dealing with the money and the clients, and we take turns, and it is a collective, truly.
Well, that's a high power group right there. And
Yeah.
I did okay. So I have something you probably don't know, or you no way you would know this. And I doubt seriously if Tom would want everybody to know about it. But in the late '90s, I produced a rap album for some guys, and it was a long story. I'm not going to go into that, but these guys were good guys, and I was more interested in helping develop them than I was not interested in the music. However, I did learn that their particular music was perfect for a bunch of kids in prison. We did a couple of prison gigs, and I was like, that's awesome. But I pulled in Tom to play guitar on top of these like they weren't canned tracks. They had a guy that did all their tracks. It was very, very much what you think it is, sampling and drum machines and stuff like that. And I was like, guys, you know, I like your songs, are great, but we need something that actually is like musical and not coming out of a box. And I hired Tom. Tom came in and just killed it, which is I knew that was, but it was funny to watch the faces of the guys in there. They were like, oh, because they were young and they hadn't been around like legit musicians. And I just remember Tom playing on that album, and he actually, it was a rap album, but he actually threw in some like Pink Floyd-esque type things that really made it rock. But totally side, but Tom is awesome. And his son could play. I mean, I've only been around, so cool. Brazuca is gigging on a semi-regular basis?
On a regular basis, yeah.
How often? Like a couple times a month?
Yeah, I think that's about right.
Fantastic. So, like I said, we came and seen you guys a couple of times, and it's legit music. So tell me about these other things. I'm going to save The King's Return. Let's look at this one. Tell me about this project, Saving Charlie Parker. What's up with this?
Gosh, yeah. If anybody likes reading historical fiction or listening to audiobooks, so when I was in school and when Morgan was in school, there was a teacher there named Mike Steinell. He has since retired, trumpet teacher, improv teacher, pedagogy teacher. Anyway, he has done a ton of research. He knows Charlie Parker inside and out. He wrote a novel during the pandemic. Well, he wrote 4. During the pandemic, people do all kinds of things, right? He became a novelist. He had just kind of soon after he retired, it was the pandemic. So he just started writing novels, and they were awesome. And they're all a little bit historical fiction, and this is his 4th novel. It's a time travel historical fiction. It's about a retired jazz trumpet teacher who goes, I think he falls down the stairs. I think he fell down the stairs and he bumped his head and he lost consciousness. And when he was out unconscious, he ended up, he was holding a book of Charlie Parker opened up to a time when he was playing what was called the greatest jazz concert of all time. Anyway, Massey Hall in the 50s in Toronto. So he ends up in Toronto at a bar across from that hall, and he ends up meeting Charlie Parker. And
so hold it. You're not telling the whole story, are you?
No. I'm not telling the story, but that's the premise. The premise is he's able to go back in time. So then he wakes up and he realizes, with the help of some drugs, little oxycodone or whatever, he's able to continue to go back in time. And so then it becomes his mission to save Charlie Parker from his early demise, because he died in his 30s from, drug overdose. Right. So that's his whole thing, he's going to save Charlie Parker.
That's awesome. So
it's so fun. So fun.
Tell me again, just repeat for me, because I'm trying to take in so much of this. What's your connection with this again?
So he writes this novel, and then he writes a bunch of songs that are based on the characters in the book, or just kind of inspired by Charlie Parker, or about the different venues. And he has an album that goes with the audiobook and the novel, album of full songs that are inspired by the book. And then some of the songs are sprinkled throughout the audiobook as little transitional moments. So
That's cool.
you hear the music throughout. So usually on concerts, when we do concerts, he'll read an excerpt from the book and then we'll do the
Oh,
song sort of associated with that.
okay. That's cool. So how
Isn't
long
it
have you
fun?
known?
It's so fun. It's really cool.
So how long have you known this guy?
Well, he was my teacher in school. So I mean, I've known
Oh,
him. Yeah,
okay.
I mean,
So
I took improv from Mike Steinell like
okay,
in
okay.
1997.
Okay, so yeah, that's just part of your history from yeah,
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so, he was my teacher. And then when I joined the faculty right after I got my master's, they asked me to join the faculty. They
Uh-huh.
had not had a specifically jazz voice teacher at that time ever.
Really?
And right. So I was the first
Wow.
person to get a master's in specifically jazz voice. Of course, they have the longest history of a jazz degree, and people have gotten masters in jazz studies and a bachelor's in jazz studies for 75 years. But the vocal jazz part as a degree itself was new. So I was the first person to do that at the master's level. And I went to school with people who were the first at the bachelor level. So it was all pretty new, and they didn't have a
Hmm.
jazz voice teacher yet. And so I was at the right place at the right time. And they said, you seem like you'd be good at this. So how about you join our faculty? So I'm like, ah. So and then he was my colleague, and he was assigned to be my mentor when I ended up upgrading from adjunct to lecturer. It was a full enough job that now there were two full-time vocal jazz jobs. So I got upgraded to being full time, and he was my faculty mentor, and then
That's
his office was
cool.
across from mine,
That's
and then he
awesome.
started a Bob Dylan band, so I'm in his Bob Dylan band, and I'm in his quintet, and so this is our second album. Yeah,
That's fantastic. So
I know.
now this is going to be kind of sad. So forgive
Oh,
me. I apologize, but is that the degree my daughter got?
yeah, yeah, and he was her teacher too.
Okay. So I thought that's what it was, but then I started
Mhm.
thinking, I'm not even exactly sure what the technical title was.
Yeah,
So
it's a
thanks for,
bachelor's in jazz studies with a vocal concentration. Yeah.
all right. So thank you for helping me know something I should have known all along. All right. So that's cool. Now this other project, producer tied
Mhm.
to these, this particular group of guys or people. I don't know if it's guys. Is it
They're all
all
guys,
guys?
four
All
guys,
right.
four guys.
So tell me about this crew.
Yeah, these are four spectacular vocalists who are in an a cappella quartet, and they say we sing in stairwells because they went viral. They do these videos where they're singing in a hall in like a stairwell, and so it's real echoey and it sounds beautiful. And they
Uh-huh.
sing all kinds of music. They sing gospel music and they sing pop music and classical music and jazz, R&B. I mean, they are genre diverse. And these stairwell videos have really taken off. I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands of people follow them, and over, a million views on this video and stuff like that. So they're big. And so they thought, well, it's time for us to make our debut album, And so the first thing they did was make a Christmas EP, and then they made a full debut album. And they hadn't ever done, any recording in the studio. They hadn't done that. And so they had a lot of questions about the process. When you have a group like that, it's like, do we all stand together like with the mics like that, or should we be separated, or should we record one at a time, or there were a lot of questions about the
Sure.
process. And because I've had a very long career simultaneous with my UNT teaching, I've had a studio career where I sing a lot of jingles. I mean, almost every week I'm in the studio for over 20 years, singing jingles, album demos, background vocals, publishing stuff. I mean, you name it, and I'm in the studio. And so I'm a studio is like a second home to me. And one of those students got a master's in jazz voice, and he was my student. So he told them, maybe we should call Rosanna, and she can just sort of help us facilitate this process in the studio and sort of help mentor us and tell us what we don't know and be the extra set of ears in the studio. So they called me. And we've gone through two albums together, and we're in the middle of recording a third one right now. And in their debut album, the big one, yeah, they had an arrangement of "How Deep Is Your Love" by the Bee Gees, that
Hmm.
too. they had an arrangement that was nominated for a Grammy for Best Arrangement. And it's like, what? Well, they didn't win. But we all got to go to the Grammys together, you know, and that was one of the things, because they're not members of NARAS, so they couldn't submit themselves. But I'm a member of NARAS, so I was able to do some submissions on their behalf. And I've navigated the making albums road, the getting a publicist road, the, you know, the Grammy road. I mean, I've gone before them because I'm older. And so I feel like I'm a good match. I'm a good fit in terms of a mentor for them. And I'm really comfortable in the studio, and I know group vocals. I do them all the time. And so it's been a really good fit. And I think there's a lot of, you know, kindness there. They're just so kind, and they're hugely talented, hugely talented. So,
I am sorry, I'm chuckling. He says, it's a good fit. I'm like, you think that's a good fit? Yeah, that's a good fit. So had you been to the Grammys before?
So I went to the Grammys. I went this past year with King's Return, but I had gone the year before because my husband and I sang on a piece called Eberhard, which was composed and recorded by Lyle Mays. He's a legendary jazz pianist. He's, you know, 11-time Grammy-winning jazz pianist, mostly known for his co-founding the Pat Metheny Group, which is a big jazz fusion ensemble, and they toured the world forever, for a long, many years. And they won so many Grammys, you know, all that stuff. They're nominated for like 27 Grammys. I mean, they were huge, right? So Lyle, very long story about how we got that opportunity, but we were 2 of the 3 vocalists on his final piece before he passed away. He knew he was in a final time in his life, and he wanted to release one more sort of magnificent swan song kind of work. And it's a 13-minute sort of mini symphony, and it was nominated for Best Composition. And so my husband and I went, and it won. Yeah.
That's awesome. I didn't know that part. I knew about these other guys. I mean, a little bit. So
so that was our first time going to the Grammys. So you've
been twice. You've been twice recently, and were there any like didn't see that coming, or that was kind of cool, or that was weird? Just like things that you would only pick up from just being there versus the coverage and, you know, all of the packaging of the event, but it's actually being there, experiential. Do you have anything to share? Because I'd love to hear anything like that.
Yeah, I do actually. There are 2 ceremonies. A lot of people don't know that. There's they call it the premiere ceremony. I think that's what they call it. And it's like 4 hours, 3.5 hours, starting at like 12:30. And that's where most of the Grammys are handed out. They hand out like 75 of them or something. I mean, it's a lot, 82 of them. Yeah. And then the televised is the one that starts, you know, in LA time, it's like 5:30 or something.
Right.
That's the second ceremony, also about 3 hours. And that's where they hand out, I don't know, 12. So it you know, the Grammys, to me, it's the premiere ceremony, which is live streamed online. You can see it online, but that's where you really meet the community. Every genre, everybody is there. We're all in the same place. We're all in line to get our picture with the little red carpet square and the, you know, backdrop, and we're all eating the hors d'oeuvres or, you know, whatever it is. Everyone is there, and it really looks like real people. And it's very encouraging, and it's very a sense of community, and you're just like amazed at all these people that you don't know, right? They're not all the famous people. There'll be some famous people, but mostly it's just the musicians and all the other categories that are not on the televised ceremony. And it's and the ceremony is just as cool, with really amazing musical numbers and a really cool host and all kinds of people coming up. And so that's a beautiful thing. And it's general seating. It's kind of come and go because it's so long. People come and go a lot. Right. And they don't show the audience as much. So like, if you get early, you could be in the front row. You know, it's fabulous. It's really, really exciting and very, very cool. And then the televised is like really intense. And, you know, obviously you have to have your seats assigned, and there's a lot more protection and a lot more.
You have to pay it. You have to be on your best behavior.
It's just huge. It's mammoth. It's mammoth,
Right.
mammoth, and that's where they have only the people who are nominated are on the floor, and they show it all the time. So then they have people replacing them if they leave, or so that's one thing, is just how beautiful and amazing. I feel like the afternoon is like the Grammys, and the evening is sort of the celebration of the Grammys. That's what it seems like to me.
Okay, that's cool.
That's one thing, and maybe another thing might be that. I don't know. One thing people don't tell you is that it's really hard to get food. You're there all day for like 9 hours, and people are just like starving. There's nowhere to get, because there's such security to get in that nobody wants to leave, but there's like no
Sure.
food anywhere. And so everyone's like, trying to find, like, there's a bag of chips, and everyone's like racing after it, and it's just so weird. That part is really weird.
Well, is there some sort of like black market, like here's the Snickers, it's $400?
I don't know. I mean, I was warned about it, so I had a protein bar in my purse, but yeah, I was amazed that there isn't like a food situation that is a little better. 2 years ago, it was in Vegas because they had to postpone it because of COVID. Omicron kind of exploded right when the Grammys were supposed to happen. And so they canceled the Grammys and they moved it to April instead of February, but then they couldn't get a venue. So when we went for the Lyle Mays project, it was in Vegas, and then there was food everywhere, because we were in a casino, but then it was moved back to the Riptos Arena. And that's when it was like, yeah, there's not going to be that much food easily accessible. You're gonna have to walk a ton, and it's just huge. It's mammoth, but it's
That's very
exciting
cool.
though. I mean,
It
the
is.
whole thing is so exciting. Are you
Yeah.
kidding? I loved every second of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So in the nomination process, how does one learn that you've been nominated? So if I understood it correctly, you were able to submit these guys. Now, King's Return is their name?
Yes.
Okay, King's Return. It probably makes sense to ask them, but I'm going to ask you, how did they come up with that name? Any idea? Or was that, do you know that at all? Or they just say, that's what we are?
I feel like because they've been around a while, but they've had personnel changes. There've been like, some different people who've been in it. But I think originally these were church musicians primarily. Like one of them is still a full-time church musician. And some of the other ones, have some church job affiliation. So I think, King's Return comes from their gospel roots. Like they were primarily a gospel ensemble. But since then, they branch out. All of their music is inspiring, uplifting music, but it's not necessarily from like a gospel style or background.
But that's their background, so therefore the name makes sense. So
Yeah.
So you were the one that was able to submit their work because you are a member? Is that how that works?
Yeah, I'm a member of NARIS. Becoming a member is not super easy. It used to be a lot easier. I was a member years ago, and then I let my membership lapse, and then to get back in, it's a little harder, So it's a real honor, I think, even more now, to be a member of NARIS. You have to have recorded in the last 5 years, and that needs to be very easily proven online. You have to be a career musician. You have to have 2 recommendations. First, 2 current NARIS members have to recommend you. Then you have to have 2 letters from current musicians vouching for you. And then you have to submit all your online things, your Spotify, your Facebook, your All Music Guide, all the things. And they want to make sure that you're not just a hobbyist who like doesn't really know about music, but maybe you're kind of doing it for fun. But if you're going to be voting seriously for people who do music as their life, then they really want knowledgeable people doing that. And so they've really changed the membership process lately. And so I've known people who are amazing career musicians, but they didn't get in because there's a whole membership committee that looks, during the membership drive. And if it's not obvious that you are a recording artist regularly, then it's hard. So I feel really honored that I'm, that I'm in there. And
Well, you're being a little humble because, yes, it does sound like they upped the ante to get in. Okay, I get that. No doubt about that. But when you went through that list of things you have to do, I'm like, well, you got all those stone colds.
I mean, I know,
Yeah. That was, it's what you were saying is it's harder for other people to get in, but it wasn't hard for you to get back in.
Well, let me tell you why, though, because it's very easy for me to show my work because so many of the projects are under my own name and have my name like on the cover. But if you're a sideman, if you play you played a sax solo on this project and they didn't release it in a hard copy, they only did it online, and there are no liner notes listed anywhere, how is anyone going to know that you're on that album?
Yeah, I understand.
Hard to prove it.
Yeah, but yes, I thank you for that background. Yes, you were. It took more effort for you the second time, but it was still totally doable given your scenario. So now you submitted the song. Now, how long? I mean, you hear this, the unwashed out there who just hear from whatever they hear, the idea of the politics and people campaigning for and trying to raise awareness. So how is that? So that's, I mean, I knew it was a thing, but okay, I know it was a thing, but you have firsthand experience with what that felt like. So do you have any comments or anything you want to share? Because I'd like to know more about that.
The whole thing is fascinating to me.
Okay.
I've loved being a part of NARAS. So first thing that happens is that everyone who's a member of NARAS, which your membership can stay for 5 years, then you have to renew, because if you don't keep recording and you don't keep doing music, well, they don't just let you stay in, so you have to prove that you're still active and all that stuff. So in that 5 years, you can nominate as many projects as you want, your own or that of other people, even non-members. You can submit it. The first 5 are free. Then after that, you have to pay $40 per submission. So, you might have one project, and that one project you're nominating in 5 categories. Well, I'm going to do best song and best new artist and this and best arrangement. So one album, you might need all 5 of those. So if you have other people with other projects, it can add up pretty fast. And there are 3 deadlines. If you do the early bird, it's $40 for every other project. The middle one is $75 for every additional submission. And if you're a late person, $125 if you want to submit past your 5 freebies. So, it helps to be early, and if people are wanting, hey, can you submit me? Hey, can you submit me?
Right.
It's going to start adding up. So that's the first thing that happens, right, is you need to get a member to submit, and members obviously can submit their own things. Sure. And it's a long kind of process about what they need for that. Okay. Then after that, they will count up all of they will prepare a ballot that's online, and then they email this very secret code and blah, 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 blah. And, you have to do the double identification and all these things. It's very top secret. And you redo your password and all these things. And so then you go and you vote for your top 5 in every category. Okay. But they only let you vote. Everyone gets to vote in the general. The general is like best new artist, best kind of, best record, best album, that kind of song, best song, which is normally like the top 40 stuff, the most, that kind of stuff. Everybody gets to vote in those. There are like 8 of those. But then they give you 3 different categories that you can vote in. You have to choose your 3.
Okay.
And they're like, please choose 3 categories that you yourself actively participate in. It's a little on your honor, but they don't want people cherry picking out of 15 different categories, just voting for random people that they heard about or that someone campaigned like, well, I'm going to do spoken word, and then I'm going to do children's, and then I'm going to do roots over here. And, because there was this guy who I met and he's like, hey, vote for me, dude. And you're like, okay, whatever. And you don't know anything about any other candidate. They're really trying to be like, no, please listen to everyone in the 3 categories. And within each category, there are many fields. So jazz might be category, and then the fields might be.
I mean, they obviously want the award to matter, not a pay-to-play thing. Their integrity is on the line every year. Their integrity is always questioned because somebody who didn't win wasn't happy about it, maybe for good reason, or just because they didn't win and they wanted to. So it sounds like, okay, so I hadn't thought of it, but once you describe that, that sounds, well, it's not the same, but it sounds reminiscent of my experience with film festivals. When you submit stuff to film festivals, you've got the early bird price, you got the regular price, you got the late price, and then you got the different categories. And if you want to be considered in these different categories, you get to pay up for every one of those categories. And so I hadn't thought of that, but that totally makes sense. And that's my experience with that kind of mindset, even though, those film festivals, you just pay. There's no.
I'm sure it's very similar. But see, like the Grammys in the old days, it didn't used to be that the NARAS voters voted in both rounds, because there are 2 rounds. One is where it's all the nominations and you as a member pick your top 5. Then whoever in every category got the most top 5 votes, those 5, then that's the second ballot, and that's who gets nominated. So when you hear someone got nominated, it means they were the top 5 in that category after the first round of voting.
Right. Very
But
cool.
it used to be that the members did not vote for round 1. There was like a committee.
Oh, really?
And that's why it used to get a real bad rap, because of being super political. But now it's the voters who do all of the voting, all of it.
Okay. I did not. Well, I would never qualify to be part of that crowd. And I've only heard little stories here and there. So, and I personally, I could go out and read, you could watch videos. I'm sure I could learn this stuff. I personally love to learn things from people directly who have done it, even though your experience is limited. I mean, everybody's experience can only take in so much, but nevertheless, I love hearing people tell me about what they experienced. So
for sure.
But
you had asked about like campaigning. They send all these rules about what you can and can't say, what you can't. You can't ask for a vote. They send a bunch of rules, right? But we are people like anybody else. I mean, you're a person, I'm a person. How in one jazz category, that one field, there might be 64 entries. Do you know how long it takes to listen to 64 entries? Now, they give us 3 weeks. I do my best to listen to every single thing in every field that I vote in. But man, it's hard. It's really hard. You'll spend hours and hours and hours and hours. So ultimately, people are campaigning, advertising, name recognition. I mean, they're just doing it. So they hire a publicist just for Grammy season. You can get on mailing lists. You can pay big money to get mailing lists and Facebook groups. People create Facebook groups for listeners, and then they'll charge to be a part of it. It's a whole scene. It's just a whole scene.
Well, I appreciate your dedication to listen to all of them. I've known a couple of musicians, and I would say there's a wide variety of levels of commitment and motivation.
I agree.
And not everybody's going to do what you're committed to do.
I know. I know.
So one of the things in film festivals, when it's interesting because different film festivals do it different ways, but some of the larger ones, they just have like film students do the initial screening who may not know anything. And I had a film a couple of years ago that the main character was early 50s, kind of a midlife crisis thing happening. And it was really pretty potent for someone of my age and people around there. But then you find out that a lot of the people who are screening the initial ones are a bunch of 20-somethings. And you're like, they're not going to get this. And you're like, well, that's not fun, because you're like, you wonder how often you didn't get a fair shake just because of the initial screening process. And, just they don't get it. It means nothing to them. Right. So music-wise, you obviously, I'm going to switch gears. You indicated your love for Mendez and how Brazuca came about. Is that really? I'm assuming you can appreciate and engage effectively any style. Are there any styles that you just don't ever do? I mean, like Miriam can sing more country today than she used to be able to. You live in Texas, so that's a thing. But in your particular world and what all you do, you may not be faced with having to do that, very often. Is there any styles that you're like, yeah, this is my jam, or this is something like, I'm not really into that? Comments about stylistic.
Well, I think because I've had that simultaneous career as a studio singer, I've been challenged a lot. As a singer for hire and as a studio singer, I've been challenged a lot to do a lot of different styles. And because I teach voice, I'm a teacher of voice and a teacher of how to teach voice. I learn a lot about the voice. So I'm a technique junkie, and I know that anyone can learn any style because it's just about deep transcription and really understanding the technique of each thing. So I've had to sing a lot of different styles, and I kind of pride myself on the fact that I can sort of be a chameleon and, at a general level, pull a lot of stuff off that I'm not an expert in. But things that I haven't had to sing a lot of that I think would require a lot of prep would be like Indian classical music.
Oh,
that kind of music,
yeah.
Singing ragas and stuff.
Oh yeah,
man, quarter tones and that kind of thing.
That's went on a whole nother level.
Right.
I wasn't even thinking about that, but yes,
I would say that.
That's a thing.
And while I can sing classical music, but if I had to do a serious opera, that would take a different, I would have to change the musculature balance that I currently am conditioned for. I'm conditioned for commercial music as opposed to classical music. So I can pretend for a while, but to get real chops and endurance, I would have to recondition my voice for certain things.
That's fun. That's fantastic. So, this question, oh gosh, this feels like a cliche question, and yet it's a sincere question. Miriam has never wanted to be an artist. She's never wanted to be somebody. It's not how she's wired. She's good, but that's just not her thing. So it's been okay for her to be a little bit of a chameleon, but it seems like one of the challenges is that people who are chameleon-ish or have that capacity, which serves them well in certain situations. If you wanted to be an artist, you have to have a sound. And, and celebrities, one of the things that struck me is that there are certain celebrities, some of the people that we can immediately identify, we know what they look like. If you see them in real life, they're weird looking. they're the thing that makes them so identifiable, which serves them as a celebrity. In real life, you're just like, they're odd. Miriam and I were at Will Rogers Follies back in the day on Broadway, and during the break, we went down, wandered around, and Larry King was talking to Donald Trump. And there was nobody around them. They were just standing there talking to each other. We walked up to those guys, and those two guys looked like aliens. I was like, in person, I was like, oh, because you know who they were. So set aside the visual thing, the distinctive nature of someone's voice. A lot of times is critical to how quickly you can identify them, and you know what I'm saying. So being a chameleon, I'm like, what does Miriam sound like? And how do you navigate that? What are your comments to young singers? How have you addressed that? You're obviously an artist, but you just talked about being able to, chameleon a little bit. So how do you navigate that? What are your comments? I want to hear this.
Yeah, well, I have to take this journey with all my students. All of them are, usually a lot of them are striving to have that artistic journey. I think that once you learn your instrument pretty well, which usually your instrument, learning it well, and your style that you kind of gravitate toward, it usually has to do with a combination of like who you like to listen to. So you can really hear people's influences. I refer to it as a musical library. You've got a library in your mind. It's like a library. And There are certain techniques, stylistic and technical things that you can do that you build into your library from imitating other people. So the first part of your journey to finding your own artistry is listening to a lot of different people and determining what you like, what floats your boat, imitating a lot of it so that you have a lot of tools in your toolbox. Then the artistic part, where if you stop there, then you end up being a little chameleon like, or you can imitate a lot of people if you stop there at just building your library with imitation. Right. But to assimilate it and to innovate, you have to have your own unique repertoire. That's where, what you want to sing, coming up with music that is your very own. Either you write it or you choose songs and you rearrange them and do them in your own style that blends all of your loves of kind of music, other musics. That is really how you have your own point of view. You have to say something that is just you saying it. So doing covers is not the way to do it unless you're going to really do them differently. Otherwise, it'll just sound like you imitating someone doing a cover. So that's what I would say is first they have to build some skill and build a library and decide what music they like. And then they have to get their own repertoire and think, what do I want to say? What do I want to say? Then they determine how to dress it up, how to style that. Kind of like, here's your jeans and t-shirt. Now, how do you want to accessorize that message? And so that becomes the ear candy that they decide to put on their sound.
So so people who watch Mother Murm's channel, I'm assuming you had not seen it before. I will sit in the control room, and between songs, I'm typing stuff in, I'm helping run it, and I turn things on and off, and so that she can just sit there and sing and play, okay? And she does requests. That's how it works. It's just a jukebox, okay? Nice. And so I throw her under the bus pretty regularly. I mean, we're married, and we're having a good time. But what you just said to me is that you've got to intentionally build what you want to sound like. I mean, you decide, you listen to what you can do, you listen to what you like, and then you decide, I am going to do this. And then you see how that goes, and maybe you tweak it a long time, but it really comes down to you deciding what you want to sound like. Since if you have the ability to sound like a bunch of people, you just got to pick. Is that what you said? Or did I miss it?
I would say that you singing your own music, whether it's a song that's already written, but you're doing it a different way, or your own music, or a song someone wrote specifically for you to sing, but there's no version of it that you can copy. When you are singing something that it's the first time anyone has sung it like that, you get to decide how it's sung. And usually you singing something brand new, what's going to happen is the culmination of all the combination of all of your deepest influences are going to just naturally come out when you sing it. So you're not going to really have to go, I'm going to sound like blah. Maybe some people do that. But more often than not, it'll just sort of happen if you're choosing the songs you want to sing appropriately.
Okay, so I think I understand where I was missing the boat, because what you're talking about is your natural interpretation of a song. If it's original, then yeah, nobody has done it before. If it's a cover, then you have to be doing something that's unique to make it different enough so that you have the ability to make those decisions. So you're talking about the interaction between the actual vocal performance, the decisions, and where the music as a whole, the music, the words, the lyrics, so yeah, okay. I was thinking just choice. Sound. I was thinking just sound. Okay, that makes sense. So Miriam and I, and this isn't, we're not trying to be anybody, but Miriam and I started writing music together. And we're just doing whatever comes out. So there's no style that we've picked. We're just like, hey, we're going down this road. We're just going to see where it takes us. We're not trying to be a style. We're not trying to develop. We're just going to write a song, and it's going to be what it is. And I wish we could do more of it. I mean, because I really have liked what we've come up with.
You should do more of it. But you're so funny though. You said it's not going to be a style, but whatever, however it's coming out, that is its style.
No, I get it, but there's not a consistency. Like we did one that it wasn't a ripoff, it wasn't intentional, but it's got a lot of vibey stuff that's very like Frozen. Like that wasn't a decision, but it was just it went one way, and they had another one. It was kind of a stereotypical inspirational thing, kind of like Miriam's done for years. But then we did one song that we've not done publicly because Miriam's she's having a difficult time playing. It's so musically challenging to play it and sing it simultaneously, and it's straight up Broadway, just straight up When you hear the song, you're like, oh, well, that's in a Broadway show somewhere. It's just in it because it's different. But my point is that
I will say I have some students who are like this, where they have multiple interests. And when they write their own songs, they do have different personas. They'll write in, oh, here's my punk girl style. And then, oh, I have songs that I've written that are jazz. And then, oh, I have songs that I've written that are musical theater. And so then you do have to make a choice. Like, because usually an album focuses on one style.
Yeah, so absolutely.
Then you have to make the choice. Okay, what would I like my identity to be? How would I mostly like people to see me as an artist? Mm-hmm. I want them to see me as a punk artist. And maybe someday I'll do a breakaway album, or I have two different artistic personas. The punk band is called, Flimsy Beethoven or whatever it's called, Right. But then I have this other group that is and I have two different bands, and that's what I do. And plenty of artists do that.
Yeah. So what you just said made me think of someone, and I have no idea if there's any chance, or maybe it's real obvious that you would know this name. But years ago, not like ancient history, but years ago, there was a student at North Texas named Andrew Tinker. Do you know him?
What did he play?
He was a composition. He got a degree in, but he was in the Polyphonic Spree. He played the French horn.
Oh, yeah, I probably don't know him.
It's fine. But the reason why I brought him up is that he wrote great stuff. I have a bunch of his stuff, but stylistically, it was all over the place because he was really good at writing all kinds of stuff. And I just remember him, I think that was one of the challenges. Like, well, who is this guy? Because you didn't know. And it was people want to have a genre. They just want to put you in a shoebox. They just really need to put you in a shoebox. So when you were describing that, his name popped up, and the fact that it was in North Texas just made me, you never know. So that is, so stylistically, people who influenced you vocally, you have some names that you shared with me in the prep document: Lyle Mays, Bobby McFerrin, the New York Voices, John Clayton, and then Mike Steinel.
Mike Steinel.
Steinel. Okay. I knew as soon as I said that, I'm like, I didn't say that right. So those are some names that you included. I only know one of them. So apologies. I'm ignorant. Can you tell me a little bit about those particular influences?
Yeah, I don't think those were vocal influences, though. I don't think that was the question.
And I agree. I didn't ask. That's not how that was. That's not how it was. The question is how it positively influenced your own personal music quest. So I'd like to know about those people because I don't know them except Bobby McFerrin, and you're obviously welcome to comment on him. But then, in addition to that, could you share maybe a couple of vocal influences as well? I'd love to hear all of that, if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah. Well, the first name, Lyle Mays, that was the project that won the Grammy. He's the pianist who I worked with. And he's, I knew him and we were close. And yeah, during the time we worked together, we had a close relationship. And we worked together in kind of two different big project ways. And I would say, yeah, he's just, he was a brilliant person who brought people very generous of spirit, brought people up to his level, but he just sort of demanded greatness from you, but encouraged you to believe that you were capable of it. So he was a big influence on me. And his music, I just think, is breathtaking and beautiful and gorgeous. So I love him musically and personally. And Mike Steinell is the Saving Charlie Parker guy. And so he's been a mentor
Right.
my whole
Right.
schooling, and
Sure.
continues to be, even though he's really one of my closest friends, honestly. We collaborate so much and we talk all the time, but he's been a mentor to me.
Hmm.
And the New York Voices are a vocal quartet that have been around for 35 years. They've been on, gosh, Grammy winning projects with like Count Basie and the WDR Big Band and, different Paquito de Rivera and all these amazing jazz groups or artists. And they are just one of the most renowned professional vocal jazz ensembles, like kind of like Manhattan Transfer, but like the next generation of that. And they've toured for, 35 years. And I subbed in that group. I've subbed in that group a few times. One for a European tour for their 20th anniversary tour. And it was a real last minute sub because of a family illness. So we sort of survived a hurricane together, in that I had to jump in with very, very challenging music and not very much time to prepare it. And we survived that tour together, and they showed me all around Europe. It was
Awesome.
really an incredible, incredible experience to travel the world with world-class musicians and get a taste of what that touring life was like for some people who that's what they do. They are just hotel rooms and trains and planes. That is their life. So they have stayed very close friends of mine and collaborators and musical influences. And I just think their music is brilliant. And Bobby, of course, I've worked with him a few different times. And my husband and I were on his album Vocabularies, which was nominated for a Grammy in 2010.
That's
and
cool.
we brought him to UNT, and we sang with him at Jazz at Lincoln Center when he debuted that project. And we just, there's a very long history between him and my husband. My husband toured in a group that he had called Voicestra, which was group improvised music. And then they toured. He went on 4 tours with him. So he's just one of these
Very cool.
iconic guys who, people that you're around that are just so wise and brilliant and inspiring. He's another one of those. And so is John Clayton, who's a bass player in LA. He's like a guru. He just is wise and the most beautiful mentor. So all of these people, I think, have affected my journey very, very positively as mentors. In terms of vocal influences, I'm influenced, my jazz side is influenced by singers like Shirley Horn and Carmen McRae. And then I have some, I don't know, I listen to a lot of different music. So I just have little pockets of interests, Brazilian groups and Sergio Mendes and all kinds of influences. I have wide listening habits.
I've been blessed over the years. I've never really gone after actively trying to broaden my understanding. It's just always kind of very fluidly happened, organically happened, where somebody that I know and trust would say, "Hey, have you heard this album?" And I'd go, if they say it's good, it's probably pretty good. And just some of them are kind of odd. And so it's been interesting over the time how you become exposed to different kinds of music. If everybody's got different ways of doing it, but like I said, ours has always just been kind of accidental and organic. So in the midst of that, you're talking about positive influences, and I put it in the terms of your own music quest. I don't want to make too big of a deal out of it, but when you heard the term music quest, did that hit you in any particular way? Because a lot of people don't see what they're doing as a quest, but occasionally you do get people that they immediately resonate with. They are on a quest. Now, what you just described, your life, you're like, I didn't plan this out. This is kind of how it happened. People ask me how I ended up where all the stuff, different stuff I've done. I'm like, it just kind of came at me and it was cool. And one thing led to another. And here we are, that kind of thing. So I could never call it a quest, but did that resonate with you at all? The term music quest?
I mean, this musical life, it's a journey. I don't know. A quest to me feels like I'm searching for something. And I don't know I've ever thought of it that way. I don't know if I'm searching for something, I don't know what it is. I think I'm just on a journey and I'm open. And when a door opens, I go through it. I think that's how it's been. People joke that, I volunteer a lot. I say yes to things. I'm a yes sayer. So even if something scares me a little, or I'm not sure if I know how to do it, I decide that seems like something I should do. And so I'm going to go learn how to do it. I'm going to just go figure it out. And so when you say yes to things and when you're open to things, opportunities, your path just sort of finds itself, and it's been a really fun journey. But yeah, I love saying yes.
I personally resonate with that. That's very much how I think it. Back in the day, while Morgan was still in high school and Jake was getting ready to go to school, we went on a journey up to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and they interviewed like 25 people who were producers, musicians, store owners, a lot of musicians. But there was this one guy that we did not know before the trip who worked at a string shop in Cleveland. And I think he was a cellist or something like that. But they interviewed this guy, and he very much said, like, hey, just when somebody needs something done, you're just like volunteer, and then you go figure out how to do it. And he goes, but then make sure you don't suck. And he was talking about getting a harmonica gig. And he was clearly not a harmonica player, but somebody's like, hey, we need a harmonica. Can you play? He was like, sure. And he went out and figured it out. But I'll never forget that, because what he said very much mirrored a version of what you said. And that's really how things happen, is you got to be open and willing to give it a shot. And then of course it helps if you are good as you do it all. So Rosanna,
well, I mean, that's the thing. You have to know your limitations and your capabilities, because you don't want to show up and ruin something or be unprepared. So yeah, I mean, I know what I'm able to pull off for sure.
So you have been extremely gracious with your time. Thank you so much. Is there anything that seems like goes along with our conversation up to this point that might be worth tagging on this? Just comment, observation. Like I said, I'm not looking for like the secret to life or anything like, but I mean, I love music. I'm recording. I love talking to people about what they do and music, and I just do. So I'm hoping that other people enjoy this. I'm hoping at some point in the future, some of your fans will find this and go, oh, that was delightful. I didn't know that about Rosanna, and that was great. So I'm doing this because I want to do it. I want to make it good for other people. So the idea that people will listen to this going forward, do you have any closing words of wisdom? Maybe something, maybe.
Well, I mean, I always think, for music or not music, I think it's so important for what I've learned. Let me put it this way. What I've learned is that I really need to listen to the little voice, the little whispers that I hear from my inner self, and sometimes they tell you to go through a door that opened that you thought, oh, well, that's not for me, but actually maybe it is, or they tell you, the thing you're doing, you hate doing this. Why are you doing it? Or whatever. I've really tried to listen to that. And if I get stuck doing something that I'm like, this isn't enjoyable, this is stressful, I have to check in with that voice, like a gig. If it's a gig, and maybe it's a gig I've outgrown, or maybe it's an instrument I wish I played and I deep down really wish I played it. And the voice is like, you could still do it. What do you still have time. It's never too late to do something you want to do. I still want to be like a super boss electric bass player. Why? I don't know. It sounds fun. Why can't I do that? What rule says that because I played French horn, that doesn't means you can't learn the electric bass when you're in your 40s? You know, there's no rule actually. So anybody who wants to, like right now, I have a gig tonight and it's with a guy who, when he was 58, he's a car dealer. Like he owns these massive, massive car dealerships in all of Dallas, Fort Worth. And so his family is multi-generational auto group, you know, family. He's always wanted to sing. Always. And when he was 58, he saw an article in a magazine that said anyone can learn how to sing. And he was like, I wonder if that's true. And he went and found a teacher. He says he called me. I don't remember actually, but I sent him to a friend of mine who's a great teacher. And it's like, it's been, how long has it been? 4 years? 5 years? I think it's been 5 years. I sing backup in his band.
He did
awesome. His dream was to do one big gig, and he prepared for 1.5 years for it, but he loved it so much that now he's got a regular band and we fly all over the place and we play all over the place and we do a ton of benefits, a lot of charities. Okay. So because he likes them to serve and do something, you know? So, but we play a ton of concerts, and I mean, he started in his late 50s. So it's a little bit like my message is, anything is possible. It's never too late. It just isn't, especially when it comes to music or the arts. So yeah, I'm going to go sing backup for him. I'm going to sing in his band. It's not really just backup anymore now. It's a bunch of leads too, but it's a variety band now. But you know,
that's fun. That's great. I really appreciate that. And yeah, what she said. And I hope this wasn't too painful. I mean, I knew you, like I said, this is by far the longest conversation the two of us have ever had. Okay. But I knew that you would be delightful and interesting and have things worth saying. I knew all that. So I'm not surprised, but I still want to say how much I have enjoyed it and I do appreciate it. And hopefully at some point in the future, you know, I don't know when, but it would be nice to think that if I ask you to do this again, you wouldn't immediately go no. So God bless you. Thank you so much for taking the time. I look forward to the next time I get to see you and Brazuca. I will definitely be posting some of these links and stuff on here. In this particular case, people, I'm just going to say, I probably should have said this up front. We didn't listen to any music on this podcast. Okay. A lot of times when I do music on there, I want people to know that they really can sing or they really can do something. In your case, everybody could just trust me. She can do it. And these links on this page will be fun to listen to. You need to go check it out and enjoy the music that you're going to find in these links. Rosanna, thank you so much. God bless you. We're gonna call it good and let you get on with your life. And we're going to go raid. You don't know this, but in Twitch land, at the end of a stream, we take all of the people that are in my chat window that are watching us right now, and we go dump them on somebody else's channel right now. And that's kind of how you share audiences. Like Miriam's this weekend, Miriam's on a classic music train where they just organize a bunch of artists and they just hand the artists every 2 hours. They just hand the whole audience off to the next artist, and it goes around the world and it goes like 3 days solid. It's fun. So we're going to raid somebody here in a second. But for now, Rosanna, thank you very much. We're going to call this good. I'm going to hit some music. We're going to raid. So guys, go say hi to everybody on the channel we raid. Tell them to come check out Jan Wallace and Music Quest. And Rosanna, thank you very much. We're going to call it good. Bye.
Thanks so much.